Welcome to Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers, a podcast for women of color and first gen who are breaking generational cycles and glass ceilings by going places no one before them has ever gone. I'm your host, leadership coach, and eldest daughter of immigrants, Mariela Delamora. I left a 16-year marketing career to create a multiple six-figure-a-year coaching business as a single mom. Each week, you'll learn how to build unshakable self-trust, become in demand, lead with confidence, and make more money by being more of who you are. Hello, everyone. I am so excited for our episode today with Naihomy. We are going to be talking about, honestly, things that I witness in coaching daughters of immigrants, high achievers, and things that I've personally experienced in terms of my relationship with my body, not realizing that I spent an entire lifetime overriding myself, overriding my emotions, being disconnected from my body, all in the name of achieving, making money, feeling safe, all the things. And we just aren't taught these things. I think many of us, we witness our mothers and grandmothers, in this self-sacrifice. We don't even necessarily all experience being validated for basic things like being tired or any of that. So I'm so excited to welcome Naihomy. Jerez. She is a certified integrative nutrition and hormone health coach, and she is also the podcast host of Wealthy Generation. She is deeply passionate about teaching women of color how to use food and lifestyle to redefine weight loss, to support their hormones, to heal their body, all while living their best life. She began her wellness journey after she gave birth to her second son. She shed 50 pounds without restrictions. She was able to maintain her progress year after year, all while honoring her foodie and her cultural identity. Motivated by her transformation and her healing, she launched her coaching business. And she is really, really driven by a desire to show women in her community that achieving their health goals is important, and it also can be fun and it can be simple and sustainable. Naihomy is a Bronx-raised Dominicana partner and mother of two. She loves to eat good food. She loves going to gym classes and reggaeton concerts. We all love it. We saw you at Bad Bunny recently. So welcome, Naihomy.
Thank you so much, Mariela, for having me here. I always love our conversations, and I'm really excited for this.
Yeah. I learned so much from you, from our conversations and just the things that you share and post on Instagram. I feel like there's mini blowing moments where I'm just like, what? Because it feels like I'm a little baby bird. Like a lot of us, and we're just learning how to fly for the first time. I'm like, what is life? What is this? Because that's how little we really are taught about our bodies and our health and how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I just want to say, yeah, I wanted to kind of have you, I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about why this work.
So why this work? I always love to say that it found me, but it really truly is my passion. Growing up and just observing, I'm really a good observer, and I pay attention to what's around me. And I would just notice a lot of conversations as a child about illness, right? And you have a kid and then you lose yourself, or you are unable to lose weight, or you're not feeling well, you're very stressed. And I would just hear my mom on the phone a lot about, y le sacaron la vesícula to this person, and they did this to that person, and this person is suffering from this. So I would hear a lot of those conversations. And I would also see a lot of, methods of trying to lose weight where it was pills and diets and plastic surgery and all these things. And, everybody has their choices and their resources and stuff, and it's fine. It's just stuff I observed. That's what I'm saying, right? And then I was in corporate and I noticed something else with the white women, especially after they gave birth and they came back from maternity leave. So I started to piece together what went on in my community and what went on in other communities. When I got pregnant for the first time, hice las paces, literally with myself. I'm like, here are all these bikinis I'm giving away, and I'm making peace that I'm never going to look like this again. And and I really went into this space of she will no longer be like this. And I'm stepping into this mom era of what I see all these other women be like.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's even not just from like the physical perspective, but also in like how you're supposed to be, what moms do.
Yes.
And like, como te ves, you know, como te vistes and like things like that, like, oh, what's appropriate and like just things like that. Because I remember my mom commenting a lot about like not showing your stomach and like all these different things where I'm just like, okay, so like this is just part of your life now.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, you're just different. And there was two sides to that, but because also there was another side of me that I promised myself I would not let myself go like that. I was just like, I really want to take care of myself. I don't want this to be my only identity. I really want to be put together and things like that. So when I was in corporate, I would see the white women come back and I'm like, why do these people look like they never had a baby? Like, what is happening? Like, what are they doing? And I never really like asked them, but I would pay attention to what they were doing and what they were saying. So they would be working out. And granted, they had nannies that could come over to their house. So we want to put these things into place too, like what they had access to as well. They were eating certain things during lunchtime. They were walking around in sweats or going to a gym class afterwards. And I was like, we're not necessarily doing those things. And I didn't have nanny. I had to do daycare, right? But I was like, okay, I'm just going to try the regular way after my second son. And I was really mean to myself with my first one. And then I was like, I'm not doing that again with my second one.
Mean to yourself almost like by just natural things that like what your body was like or because you wanted to like work out and do these things and you didn't?
No, like I was forcing myself into pre-pregnancy jeans when they were clearly jabbing into my C-section scar. And I would be like, I'm not wearing pregnancy pants because I'm not pregnant anymore. I'm just going to put on these pants. And that was kind of mean. Like I was in pain. They didn't fit. And I was like, I'm not going to do that with my second one. So I wore my maternity jeans and my maternity clothes until I was able to like comfortably fit into other things. And another thing I did with my second one was I said, I'm just going to buy clothes that fit my body now.
That in itself is like, if you were to just say that, I think especially if you say this to, I even feel like a high achiever brain is just like, if I keep the size that I was before, that's going to motivate me. And if I don't, it's going to make me lazy and then I'm not going to want to do it. It's almost like you're used to punishment as like a form of motivation.
Yeah. And what a waste of money, right? Like buying this clothes and then I'm going to go lose weight, right? So I was like, nope, I'm going to buy clothes that fits my body now. Obviously, I'm not going to buy a whole wardrobe, but a few pieces because believe it or not, buying clothes that actually fits your body, no matter what the sticker number says, will help you be confident. So believe it or not, buying new clothes in your actual size, no matter what the sticker says, can help increase your confidence because you don't have stuff tugging at you. You know, your rolls are not like popping up through the top. Like it can really, really make a big difference. So that's something I did. And then in the process, I was like, well, I'm going to try what these other people are doing. I'm going to go to the gym. And I did this all within my capacity. I was not beating myself up about it either. And during that time too, I started working with a nutritionist. And my thought was, what are they going to teach me? I know about food. Like you eat less rice and beans and you eat more salad. And like, I know how to eat healthy. And that ended up changing my life. I worked with this woman for 2 years. It absolutely changed my life. And that's when I was like, first of all, I gave myself time to make sure it worked because I lost the 50 pounds and I was like,
that's like a huge difference when you think about like losing.
It's a huge difference.
Childbirth.
Yeah. And I was like, everybody lose weight. It's fine. Next year, I'm going to be where I was before. And then I'm just going to tell people what happened. But 2 years in, I was able to maintain everything, my energy, my eating style, the gym. And I had 2 babies. They were like 1 and 3 at the time. And I had a big corporate job in the middle of Times Square, long commutes, having to drop my kids off at daycare, pick up all of that. Like, I had my partner too, but it's just a lot of responsibility. And that's when it clicked for me where I was like, why don't women in my community know about food? Why don't they know how their body works, how food works, how we don't have to torture ourselves or make it so complicated? And that's how the coaching was born. Like, I want to do this.
You had to do it for yourself.
Oh, 100%.
In order for you to not hate the journey and also for it to be sustainable.
Yes.
Because I feel like I hear that in there, that it's like sustaining it is the hardest part because that's how you know that you've integrated this into your life that is also now more complicated and complex and layered because you have 2 babies who are 1 and 3 and your job and all the things. So it's almost like even if you did it before, you're not the person you were before. Your life is different. Like, how do you maintain it? And if you didn't know, you had to go figure out, almost like you were learning a language. Because I think about how we don't know nutrition. Like, I think of, stuff I heard in my house where it's like, oh, well, you just have to eat less. And I'm just like, but it's all about what you're eating. It's not just less. And then even with my parents, they're like, oh, we're like fasting and we only eat this. And like, it's just like, there's truths and then there's exaggerations and then there's omissions. And so like, we just don't know something that's so critical that like affects literally every single day of our lives, our health, our future, like everything. It's like wild to me.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. You had to learn it.
I had to learn it for me. I had to prove it to me. I was actually gathering a lot of data while I was doing it. And when people would ask me about my results, people would be like, what are you doing? And they always wanted to hear not what I told them. And I'm like, oh,
like a secret? Like, oh, what's your secret?
Like, what
and they wanted, I just stopped having this. And it's just like, no, it's like where the answer is very unsexy because it actually is like a very well-rounded
unsexy. And people would just stop the conversation because they were so underwhelmed by it. But there were other people who would be like, could you help me? And I would be like, yes. So I actually coached. I didn't know it was called coaching. It's a long story about how I actually accepted that I was a coach, but I started helping them too. And they started getting results. And I was like, so this is repeatable.
Who were the first people?
It was not my coworkers. It was like family. And random people. Like one day I was at a baby shower and so a girl I went to college with that I had not seen forever. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I could help you. And she's like, really? I wrote my phone number on a napkin because it was a barbecue. And I was like, here, just text me if you want support. 2 weeks later, she texted me. I overheard a girl at the gym I was going to, and she was like, and I would see her there all the time. And she goes, oh, food is really hard for me. And I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I just overheard you. I don't know you, but I can help you with food. Like, this is the type of stuff I was doing.
When I think about like our first clients too, especially if you're just like, it's literally as simple as just being like, I can help you. And sometimes you don't realize like, oh, I have a package and I have pricing and stuff. Like you may not, but like you start coaching. I think anybody who's a coach coaches before they ever get paid.
Yeah.
You naturally are a person that like people come to for specific things. And then you realize like, oh, a lot of people are asking me about this similar thing. And then you figure out like, oh, this could actually, I could monetize this,
Yeah.
So that does not surprise me that it came across this way. But I love the fact that you were just like, by the way, I heard you and like, I can help you.
I was so embarrassed to do that, but I was like, I really, really wanted to see how I could help other people. And it ended up working. I literally would have like little vanilla folders with my clients' information in there, and I would have them, and I still have some as like memorabilia
of how you first did it. Another thing I was going to say too is that I think that without us realizing it, I say we like women of color and first gen, that we tend to discount other people's results if we don't see ourselves in the person. So that I think goes with money. I think it goes with health, where they'll just be like, yeah, but these white women are naturally skinny.
Yeah.
So like, I just can't because I have hips. Or, oh, they eat this and they don't have like beans and rice in their culture and they don't have this. And so it's like when you see, okay, like she looks like me, she has 2 children, immediately I think it changes somebody's brain chemistry to be like, I believe you can help me specifically, even if I have a different like but or what if challenge.
Actually, so a lot of my clients say that on their forms. They're like, you understand my food. I see the food you eat and it actually looks good. And it's like stuff I eat at home. Like
Yes.
you get the cultural nuances that happen in these journeys. And yeah, I had to go through all of it. And I haven't, as you said in the beginning, like that's been core for me, like keeping my culture, keeping my food. And I was very adamant about that from the start. I'm like, what? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I'm not going to give up whatever, plátanos and bagels and whatever I like to eat.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And I know that also has a big part to do with like maintaining and sustainability and stuff, like not being so rigid and so black and white about things where you feel like you're losing everything that you love or things that are part of your culture. With that, I know that one of kind of the things that I alluded to, like at the top of the episode that you and I have talked about, is about us being in survival mode without realizing it, and how that affects our health journeys, because we, number one, don't have literacy like around our bodies and nutrition, but we also aren't necessarily connected to our bodies. So what does it look like for us to be in survival mode? Like, what does that actually mean when we say like we as women of color are in survival mode and that affects our relationship with our bodies?
Yeah. I think it can look different for a lot of individuals, but in general, what I find is that they are not meeting their basic needs at all. And they're always putting themselves last, as basic as, have you had some water today? Did you eat today? Are you sleeping? What are you doing for yourself that is not surrounded by like what you have to do for other people? Or like you'll get to that when X, Y, Z, ... and that time never comes. So the integration of taking care of themselves while their life is lifing doesn't really happen. So a lot of women end up getting very sick. A lot of us have a lot of autoimmune issues, a lot of fertility issues, a lot of brain fog, like just so many things that are happening. And then what also happens is that because we come from a lineage of being in survival mode, those symptoms are coined as normal, because your mom had them and your grandma had them and your tias and all of this, but it's not.
It's almost as like genetic, or people think stuff is genetic, but really it's the behaviors. That are learned.
Like, yes, you might have a higher predisposition. Like me, I have a higher predisposition to diabetes. However, the way I live my lifestyle can have a great impact at not having that come to fruition. So, but I used to think having migraines all the time was totally normal, that my feet were swelling and my hands were swelling all the time. I thought that was totally normal. Being hangry, I thought that was totally normal, and it was not. And I thought it was because it was like my mom had that too, and other people in my family. But it's just because they were as dysregulated as I was.
Okay. This is where I'm like, okay, tell us what are different things that you've seen in clients that they think is just the way they are, just what's in their family, just all of that, but it actually is related to their bodies, food, like what they're eating, and hormones. Because you mentioned a few things like migraines, swelling, feeling hangry, I'm sure like mood, things like that. Like, what are some of the things that come up where clients are like, they think it's one thing, but it's really that?
Well, I know one specifically, she came and she was suffering from a lot of acne and cystic acne. And she was going to the dermatologist and they were giving her steroids and steroid creams and antibiotics and all these things. And in one of the few conversations, and she goes, oh, I really think it's my hormones. And she also had terrible periods where she was out for a couple of days. She's also an entrepreneur, so that is valuable time. She was not able to function. So in that combination, she just assumed, because oftentimes period is associated with acne, she's like, oh, it must be my hormones. And the dermatologist, they keep just giving me these pills and stuff. And just by a few questions, I was like, oh no, it's not your hormones, it's your blood sugar, which technically is tied to your hormones because of insulin. Yes. But I was like, it's your blood sugar. That is at the core. It's not that is an estrogen problem or a progesterone problem. Sure, everything is ruled by hormones in your body, but the food was the main thing to help the hormones balance out.
That makes sense, because they're not isolated. No. They're not like, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like
so it's like one network can help the other. Oh my God.
So after we
Gosh.
started working on that, her acne went away. She had tolerable periods. Like she was able to show up and not feel embarrassed because of the way her face
Yeah.
looked, not be able to miss big meetings or events or things like that because her period was coming. She's an avid traveler too. So she would be nervous to
Yeah.
travel and how sick she would get. And all of that got
Yeah.
resolved by like a few modifications to, well, her food
Yeah.
and like her overall lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think that this also brings to light like how good we get at coping. Coping
Mm-hmm.
becomes like a skill set that we develop and that your tolerance for it goes up and up and up the longer it's been happening. Like you might, start to shift your schedule. You're like, okay, know that I'm going to be on my period, or like, I don't know, just different things. So it's like, it raises the threshold of where you would ever even think to ask for help because you just become a really good sufferer.
Yeah. Oh my
you
gosh.
know?
I told that to somebody once. They were like, I'm just really good at like, or no, they were like, eating XYZ doesn't bother me anymore. And I told them, yes, it does. Your tolerance to accept the pain has changed. And it was like,
That makes sense. Yeah. This makes so much. Oh my God. See, these are the things where I think it just illustrates also in like Western medicine how we treat the symptom, and we'll treat just the symptom in isolation. And typically like they may ask some other like history things, but typically when they ask history, it's more about like, so that we know whether we can prescribe this medication versus like actually what else could be involved in why this person feels the way that they feel, especially if they've had this issue for like a number of years, their lifetime, like all of that.
they're asking the right questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I'm like, when we're treating the symptom, we're not actually solving it. Whereas like when you're changing what's going on in your body and like what you're putting in it, you are actually changing it like at the root. And we just literally like, this is not anything that most of us ever like learned. I wanted to ask you about like, what are some of the reasons why we cope for so long? Like, why do we get so accustomed to being like, this is just the way that I am. This is just something that like my mom went through and then I went through. And then does like the role of being like a high achiever, how does that like compound that?
I think to answer your first question is like, we don't know any other way.
Yeah.
I found out by accident just because I really wanted to go on this journey. And I was pre-diabetic. I was barely 30 years old. So at almost 40, I'm like, I'm afraid of where I would have been if I had not changed my lifestyle 9 years ago. It's really scary. And I really did not know any other way. I would walk around with a mini pharmacy. I would have Gas-X and Tums and Pepcid and migraine medicine and all this. And whoop, whenever I felt something, I would just pop one in. I had no idea that I could avoid any of those things in the first place just by the way I ate or my lifestyle. So what I try and do in my content and in everything I do is like, hey, you don't have to suffer like this so much because we're just so used to it, especially when it's generations down the line. And it's like, oh, that's just how the women in my family are.
That makes sense. Yeah. So we witness it. This is just the way that the women in my family are. Things like having the little paquetitos that have like the pills in them and like all of that, where it's just like, oh yeah, no, I am managing it because I'm taking this medication. Yeah. So yeah, we witness it. I know we also just witness a lot of like self-sacrifice in general. So it's just like, yeah, that's just it. And I also would say too, I know I've seen this. I feel like this is for sure in my family and maybe a lot of like Latino families, like people don't get diagnosed with things. It's just like anything that comes up, you're like, oh, that's just that person. They just that's just how they are. Like, we don't actually go to the doctor and be like, no, but like this is coming up and like this is affecting my life. Like something like that, where it's like you dig into it and you try to find out what the root cause is. There's so many like undiagnosed things I think that happen in like Latino families as well.
That's one. And two, I find that with women, we are gaslit a lot. I have a lot of clients that come to me and they're like, the doctor told me this, the doctor told me that. They didn't help me. I have one particular client who is really struggling and she's like, the doctor just told me, like, she would tie everything or they would tie everything back to my weight. And they're like, if you lost weight, this would get resolved. If you lost weight, this would get resolved. And that's just so hard to hear and so discouraging. And it happens so often where it's like, oh, you're imagining things. Oh, it's because you're a woman. Oh, that's normal. And it's like, is it? Is it really normal? Or,
Yeah.
oh, your blood work came back fine. What?
It happens a lot.
Yes.
Where it's like it comes back fine, but the range of fine is so broad. And then you don't actually get any answers because they only would look at it in isolation.
Yes.
So it's like you need somebody to look at it holistically. Like I did that recently with blood work, and then all of them were in a normal range, but the range was so broad that I literally had to go and like look it up and like look at my individual scores and then get some sort of like clarity. But it's like we don't know that.
Exactly.
Nobody is like helping us figure it out.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. With this, how does being a high achiever, let's talk about like, what does that look, how does being the high achiever affect or like compound this situation? And when I say high achiever, I mean like somebody who really wants to like do the best possible job at everything that they do, whether it's like showing up for their family or in school or in their jobs and just like succeeding. How does that compound it? And how have you helped clients like work through that? Like because I'm sure that anybody that's a high achiever, I would say like you probably had to learn how to suppress your emotions and connection to your body.
Yeah. So the way being a high achiever compounds it is that a lot of those symptoms get ignored, or you say that you have a high tolerance to, and they make it okay. It's like, oh, it's always been this way, is fine. Oh, when this happens, this is how I deal with it. And then I come right back. But we have to be so careful because a lot of the high achievers have autoimmune conditions because their system is just so tapped out. Like, their gut is in distress and then like things just start to compound inside. And most of the time those are the type of people that have a very scary event in their life where they end up in the hospital or they have a certain diagnosis or something like that, because you just keep going. You need to meet these deadlines and you need to be your family secretary and you need to be all these things and you cannot stop. You cannot say no. So all of that takes a toll on us.
One of my best friends who was a therapist had an autoimmune issue come up like after leaving the field of therapy. And it was like so scary. And I remember when it happened. And I think like now looking back as you're telling me this, I'm just like, this made sense. Like that was already like a breaking point between like the number of hours and like the stress and the pressure and then being an eldest daughter and being a family mediator and like all of those things where it's like, where did the autoimmune, you almost think it's like, oh, this is just a thing that happened. But like when you actually look at the whole picture, I'm now even seeing it based on what you're sharing. I'm like, oh no, this makes sense. It wasn't just a thing that cropped up in like a 20-something-year-old person, you know?
And then once her body relaxed is like, boom.
Yeah. Okay. I want to share some stuff that's come up for me in our conversation because I want to like make this, I don't know how many people will like relate to this, but I want to say that I know that this has to do with how much I suppressed everything, I would say, to be a high achiever. And I say high achiever, and sometimes we don't choose necessarily to be a high achiever. It's kind of like, I was a high achiever, yes, but then I became a single parent, and then I'm like, all right, well, I got to make ends meet. It's on me, whatever. That it wasn't until I'm 44, and it wasn't until my 40s that I even realized that I felt different in the week leading up to my period or during my period. This is wild because people would talk about like, oh, I know that I'm getting my period because I'm feeling really tired, or I'm like, oh, I'm feeling kind of sad, or I'm feeling self-critical. And I just remember being like, oh yeah, I don't think that I'm affected by my periods at all other than the fact that I have them. And now that I went through burnout last year and my body hit a wall, I feel like it's like, was this always there and I just didn't know that it was there? And now it's like, I can't unsee it. I can't unfeel it. And it's kind of annoying, to be honest, sometimes, because I'm like, oh my God, like now my body is like, you can listen to me. Let me tell you, we are so tired, you know, because I was like, oh, I don't nap. I am not, I can count like less than probably 20 freaking naps I've taken in my life. Right. Same. Like, and I'd be like proud of that. And now my body's just like, hi. So you're listening. We have stuff to say. So that's how one thing. And another, I remember telling my friend also who had the autoimmune thing come up, because she reminds me of this all the time. She was a therapist, that I said, yeah, like until this year, I only needed 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night my entire life until age 44. And now I need at least 8 and I get tired. And I'm like, what is happening? But this all happened after burnout last year. And it's like my body's not the same. And it feels like my body had to yell at me and break down and be like, we're just going to sit here until you listen to us because clearly you haven't been. So I wanted to share that and be like, what do you see in that? Is this a pattern you see? Because that's how long you could live in this suppression state.
Yeah.
Without realizing basic things.
That's one. And two, I'm going to go back to the education piece. We're not taught about our period. We're not taught how it works. We're not taught how it feels. We're not taught the cycles and all of that. So almost all of my clients, me neither. Like I was taught to like track it to make sure you're not pregnant, but that's as far as it goes.
That's a big thing of like, oh yeah, to just make sure you're not pregnant. I remember when I got my period, my mom hadn't talked to me about it at all. It's like, I just knew from girls at school. And I remember I was in the bathroom with her and she was like, and she's like, mija, ya pasó? Like it happened. And I was like, yeah. And that was it. But like, we never talked about it. And I talked to my daughter about it all the time.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh yeah, like it's just, she's like, what's wrong, mommy? And I was like, oh, it's just that my tummy hurts because I'm on my period. And she's like, oh, I never want to get my period. But it's like, it's a normal conversation, but it's wild because sometimes even in Latino households, like we don't actually talk about something that's you're going to have for decades of your life.
Exactly. So
like,
that's one of the issues for sure. It's I have my clients track their periods, and when they're not used to doing that, I know that it's coming before they do, just because of how they show up on their coaching calls, and I write them down too, because the week before they're like, yeah, life is great, I'm doing, so good, I have so much energy, and then the next week they're like, I don't know what's wrong with me, everything feels so hard, I didn't want to show up, and I'm like, girl, you're gonna get your period, let's go look at the calendar, and every single time.
Imagine you spending 30% of your life blaming yourself for something that is actually related to your hormones.
Exactly.
That's what I did. Blame it on willpower, blame it on like all the things.
And that's why I tell them, I'm like, you need to know where you are in your cycle, because when your brain starts to be ratchet and try to tell you that you don't look good in your clothes and that you gain weight and that you suck at everything and that you need to quit, you need to understand. And I have boundaries with myself. I'm like, I don't entertain those thoughts. I don't make any decisions. If not, I would have quit my business 15. Like, I'm not going to have those conversations. I'm just going to wait it out to see if I feel the same way once it's done and my hormones are calm. So you can have a lot more grace with yourself when you know when that's happening.
That makes sense.
And then when it comes to you specifically, it can be a combination of two things. So I really tailor my work to where the woman is in her hormone season. And with someone like you, it would be something like, is it perimenopause? You are clearly in your mid 40s. So I do hear, and period symptoms do start to change and evolve. In perimenopause, your needs become different. So that's how I would kind of look at you, and not just like, oh, it's your period. If you were, let's say, in your mid 30s, it's like, yeah, let's talk about that. But also it's like, how do we take more of a perimenopausal approach than just solely period?
Yep. And it makes sense with things that I think too, what this also makes me think about is how often we attach shame to things we're experiencing, because I think about things like perimenopause and how it's like something that isn't often talked about, because it's like, we don't even want to face the fact that it like might be happening. So like, I'm just not going to talk about it. And then like, we just don't do anything about it. And then it just becomes like, oh, all of a sudden, like, your mood is different. You're more tired or you're more irritable, whatever. You have a hard time focusing. And then there's no explanation.
Yeah.
So I totally,
It's also a new conversation to be totally open and honest about it. It's not something that was accepted before. It was not. It's just now that there's a lot more scientific research around it. The doctors are learning about it. So to have this niche of information of what's happening to the body, what are possible symptoms, how can you adjust your lifestyle so that you can cope better in this season is new. It's fairly new. And that's why I also focus a lot on that, because it can be so helpful to understand when you're like, oh, all my life I've been this way, and now this is happening to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think about that, and not how it's like, not everything, especially when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, because many of them listen to this podcast, not everything is mindset.
Oh no.
It's like literally it's physical.
Yeah, it's outside circumstances.
And I think that's so important to note because I think that for anybody who grew up in any element of like survival or high achievement, we take responsibility so harshly sometimes that we take it and make things a matter of willpower or our personal character or mindset, when in reality, there's other things that could be impacting it. And it's just like we're almost this expectation that like if we've ever performed at a version of what feels like peak for us, we'll hold ourselves to like that standard. Cause I know I do that all the time. I'm just like, yeah, but like I used to be able to work like 70 hours a week and then I'd still go to the gym and then I'd still do all these other things. And it's just like, yeah, but like all of that actually wasn't a machine that was meant to keep running, you know? And so not everything is mindset. And I also, this is something I learned is like, you are also not going to be the same person like season after season. So even trying to hold yourself to something that wasn't sustainable, it like just means that you ignoring your needs has an expiry date and eventually your body will get louder, you know? Yeah.
That's something good to bring up because a lot of times I hear people and they're like, oh, you know, when I was in high school or when I was in college, I'm like, girl, it's been like 20 years, 30 years. Could we appreciate where you are right now? Like, that's a totally different season.
It's like, that has nothing to do with you, you know? Like, your brain wasn't even fully formed. Your prefrontal cortex wasn't even fully developed.
Like, can we just admire her and admire yourself now? No?
I understand because I'm like, I do that with like my, 31 year old self. And I'm just like, yeah, but also you probably were like suppressing some stuff back then. It was just very different. And also I did not have children. So
exactly. So this is maybe like PG-13. I don't know, whatever. But the other day I was on Facebook and I was looking through my old photos, which are blocked, by the way, if you go try and find them. And it was like me in my early 20s at the beginning. And I was like, damn, my titties were so perky.
Yep.
Why didn't I appreciate that back then? I'm like, now I breastfed 2 kids and all this. They didn't look at the same, but it's okay.
No, we also are, as I think about this with that, as being in my 40s now, how it's like, we're as young as we're ever going to be today.
Yes.
So it's like, I know me in my 50s is going to be like, can you stop? You're still like, you still have time. So I think there's just a lot of like, unrealistically holding yourself to some past version. I know people that are I feel like there's no way you could be listening and not be like, yeah, I know I do at least like some of these things or witness some of these things. What are some small ways that we can begin to like listen to our body's cues? Like what are some cues that people start with when they're completely disconnected? Because I'm sure over time, like when you work with your clients, they start to come to you and they're using different language. They're noticing things that they didn't. They're starting to like feel different. How can we begin to listen to our body's cues and care for ourselves if we feel like we are in a place of being disconnected?
Please encourage people to just take a pause if possible at multiple times during the day. And it's like
really good advice.
I woke up. How do I feel? Like even just trying to find language to describe how you feel. And it can be very basic. Oh, I woke up and I'm still tired. I woke up and I'm still sleepy. I actually don't feel hungry till 1 p.m. And those are all very small clues. It's like 11 p.m. and I'm tired, but I can't fall asleep. Those are all good clues. Or
that makes sense.
I get a headache or I can't focus, or just very simple language can be very descriptive, but you at least need to have that. So I start them off there most of the time, just noticing what's happening as often as they remember and just tracking that.
Do you have some clients that like, does it depend on like, do some of them journal about it, or do you have any apps that you recommend where people can track that? And I think about how sometimes I like gamifying things or like, so I'll use like the Flow app for my period. And then that's where I'll put like fatigue and abdominal cramps and stuff. But it's like, that's the only time I actually sit and think about it. So I'm starting to see patterns because I tracked it. How could somebody do that? What are some different ways?
Different ways are great. It depends on what works for them. A journal is good. I tell them like, if you're a paper and pen person and you carry that stuff with you, just jot one word down. That's it.
Yeah.
Like jot something down. A lot of people keep notes on their phone. It can be very basic, and you have a notes app and you write things down in there, or you write notes in your calendar. The period tracking apps are also really good. I personally have a specific food and lifestyle tracking app for my clients, and they can write notes in there. I'll have them, sometimes I'll give them the homework of tracking specific things so that we can see the pattern of how they're feeling and what they're eating and other lifestyle things that are happening.
Able to see what they put in the app. Like, do you have like shared access?
Yes. I have coach. I have a coach access, so I see everything that they're putting in there. From my end, but it can, I used to track my weight. I just showed it to my client before this recording. On the notes app on my phone, and I have data going back to 2016, and you just see like different data points on there. So, and I have some send me voice notes because they have WhatsApp access to me. So I was like, when this happens, just send me a voice note, and then I can go ahead and paint a picture
and kind of create a record. Like you're sort of creating the record with the client. They're plugging stuff in, and then you're taking notes and then seeing the full picture. Yeah. No, it makes sense. And I think that just like how you said, the pausing and the noticing, like most of us don't do that. Like I know that I don't, especially when things are busy. It's almost like you don't even notice that you haven't like taken a breath or that like your jaw is tight or like any of that. So you're just like going. And no wonder someone will be like, what did you do today? And you're like, I don't even know. But I've been like going on, and that's how those things get lost.
Or we can set reminders. Like I've sat there and we've set reminders together on a calendar. Not that it's homework for later where you can forget or you lose track. It's like, we're going to do this together right now. So these things are in place.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think as I'm thinking about like people thinking of like support do they need that's beyond just like the doing? Because I think that we tend to think about the doing before we think about like the person that actually has to do it and like show up to the business, to their families, even to decision-making things, like where I think about like brain fog or ADHD or just things that just make it hard for us to get the things done. I wanted to know what symptoms are like, have you helped people that have trouble just like getting things done? You know how like, is it ADHD or how much of it is like those symptoms get worse because of certain things? I'm curious about that because in the world of entrepreneurship, our ability to focus, create, make decisions and get things done really, really affects our experience of entrepreneurship. It affects how much money we make because it affects our creativity and literally everything. Tell me in your world, like food and hormones, like what are some surprising things that affect that part of us that is so present in entrepreneurship?
Blood sugar.
Because I think there's some misconceptions here often, and I hear this too.
What's
where people
the misconception?
Are like, I just have ADHD. I'm just overwhelmed. And I'm like, yes, but I think that like, I think about when people sit down and they say like, oh, I have this amount of time to get things done and they actually get it done. Yes, there's a lot of things that get in the way of that, but I'm like, it has to also be like, I think about how in the afternoon sometimes like I can't do certain work because like my brain is just done. And that's another thing that I think is very common that we've just subscribed to like, yeah, I can't do creative work in the afternoons because like my brain is foggy and like I just can't, or I try to, but then like nothing comes out. And I'm like, there has to be some element of like what we're eating and what we're putting in our bodies that affects our mental clarity and our ability to create and make decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, tell us about it. Cause I know I was like, I wanted you to bust some myths here about this because I don't hear anybody talking about this. And it's something that's so important in our world.
Yeah. Fun fact. I was told I also have ADHD. So that's something like wrapping my head around and trying to improve on as an entrepreneur. But what I do think affects like can take you over the top of already having maybe attention issues or not like having heightened anxiety or feeling, like you can't settle down and all of that is your blood sugar. And the way we eat naturally, even if you don't have ADHD, this will have an effect on you where you're more jittery, you can't focus, you have brain fog and all that. So if that's one of the things that I try to really regulate and I help all my clients regulate, because if your blood sugar is dysregulated, it just kind of rules a lot of your body. That and like stress management, like, that's another part of it. And they both can like ping pong off of each other. So we want to like see where we're with both of them, the way you said, like the clenched jaw, the hunched shoulders, things like that. We want to have that awareness too. So depending on where my client is, we'll start with like noticing stress and what we can do about stress. And other times we'll start with the food portion of it. But if you're not eating, let's say, if you're just snacking all day, or if you're eating high sugar things all day, if you're not eating at all, if all you're having is coffee, if you're not having so it's no surprise.
That's so common.
Yeah. Like you're having coffee for breakfast.
And then you get hangry, and then you eat, and then your blood sugar spikes, and then it dips, and then you're tired. And then you're just like, oh no, I have to get these things done within this window because like this is all I have. And this is just a thing that I know. Yeah. I've heard it, and I coach a lot on, I coach people on getting things done, but it's like I take a different like avenue to it. But I know that getting things done and decision making is such a big challenge for so many of us. But that's for sure something that I think we subscribe to, like, this is just the way that it is. But I hadn't thought of like, I thought of like caffeine crash, but not necessarily blood sugar. Oh, and it's like, it's just like blood sugar crashing, and then it takes your focus.
You're on this roller coaster because you really need to meet your body's needs. So my high achievers, they're like, I went straight to work because I have so many things to get done. And I was like, and how effective were you? How efficient were you? Like, how long did that take you? How long does it normally take you? Right?
So taking a blood sugar, like how you're on a roller coaster and you're trying to get the work done on the roller coaster.
And it's really hard to catch up. Like once it takes off, you just can completely need to reset. Like you need to go to sleep and you need to wait for the next day. So it's really important to just like blunt it right in the beginning of the day. And it can take some time, right? Because your body gets used to functioning in that way. So doing things another way, your body is really good at just flowing with you. It'll just flow with you. Is that the most effective? And are you going to get the most out of yourself? And you're going to feel the most calm? And probably not. But that's what you're used to. That's what your body is used to. So it will course correct for you. But eventually, because it's just like, let me put some training wheels on here. Let me support her over here. And it's kind of like just putting out fires all the time. Eventually, it's not going to lead to a place where you want to be. Oh,
yeah. You know what this makes me think of is like, if you didn't get oil changes on your car and you put like dirty gasoline in it, it would still run for a long time, but eventually something is going to happen where it breaks down.
I did that. I put the wrong gasoline in my car and it kept running. And then all of a sudden it was in the shop and I was like, I don't know what's wrong with this thing. And they're like,
and it's more expensive to get it. So just like the problem that you create through it is more expensive energetically and everything.
It was all dirty on the inside. And they're like, oh, you put the wrong gasoline. And I was like, this is just like the body. Like it'll keep going, but eventually it's going to be like, no, we're done with you.
I think about that whenever I don't drink water because I didn't grow up like with us drinking a lot of water. And sometimes I'm like, wow, it's a miracle that my body like got me through the day when like I drank coffee like twice, but I didn't actually have sips of water. And so I think about like, oh, this is just a car I put dirty gasoline in and it's a miracle it's working. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I need to drink water because I'm like, how is it that the body needs this much? And I gave it none. I gave it, in the form of coffee, but we do it all the time.
Absolutely.
This has just been so good. I feel like there's so many more like questions. I've been really thinking about like, what are things that I've experienced? What are things that I coach on? What are things I see in the world of entrepreneurs that like, because we do ask so much of ourselves that it's even more tempting for us to just like bypass ourselves because it feels like there's so much on the line. Share.
Say that it is worth the effort to take care of yourself, right? You don't, your body does not have unlimited resources, right? And it's really important to protect it and to love on it, especially as women with all our hormone transitions. And it feels so good to feel good. And it feels so good, to have autonomy. And a lot of women don't like lose that. A lot of women are alive for a lot longer than men, but they're not living because they end up in nursing homes. They are not autonomous anymore. because they cannot
Yeah.
do things physically, mentally, all that. So why don't we work on taking care of ourselves now? And we always have this misconception of no hay tiempo y no hay dinero, and I have to take care of all of these things. And I'm like, girl, that dust is going to be there when you get back. Like, those
Absolutely.
dishes,
Yes.
and we're always taught like, no, la casa primero. Oh my God, que floja, que asquerosa, you're not
Yep.
cleaning.
And the standard there is unreasonably high. Like,
Yes.
it's actually not even helpful. There's still ways. It's almost like when you say that, you're not even actually thinking of how could I do it.
Right. So it's like we are worthy of that.
Yeah.
We are so
Yeah.
worthy. We are such loving beings, such caring beings. So we need to care for ourselves first to continue to do that for other people and to show up how we want to, because it's really hard when you're always on E and being so resentful. And I feel like we've lost, or we don't know, per like everything we just spoke about, how it actually feels to feel good, or you've kind of given up on that idea that it's possible for you.
That makes sense.
And it is.
I feel that.
Yes. And
I really feel that.
I want everybody to know that it's really, really worth your time. It does not have to be that complicated. It can really fit into what you like. It doesn't have to be like this cookie cutter program or like solution that you see out there, or that just doesn't feel good to you. There are many, many, many different ways to do that. And we are worthy of that. Think of how you might want to live your life, and don't take the things you can do now for granted, because it could just take
that's so important.
A little slip and you break your hip, or and you will never be the same again. If you see the stats of women in nursing homes because they've lost that ability, or they had like a fracture or something like that, is really devastating. Yes. Wherever you are now, estás a tiempo. Like, you're right on time to start making changes.
Yeah, that's so powerful, of like the fact that it's not too late, and how our relationship, like, it made me think our relationship with ourselves, like, is the only lifelong relationship. Like, we are going to be with ourselves. We're going to be existing in this body, and to not take that for granted, because as much as we want to like compare to like past versions of ourselves, but it's like, yeah, but you can do something now. And I think about like, even to borrow or hijack that thought of like, but other people need me and this needs me. It's like, yes. And if that's true, I mean, this is something I would tell myself. It's like, and if all of those things are true and you want to be able to show up to those responsibilities and the people you love, then it's so important. Don't you want to be not only around, but functional, clear, taken care of, regulated? So it's like, okay, let's agree with you for a second, but like, what does that actually require for you to give yourself? So I think that's so powerful. I love that. This is really almost just like rewiring, like generationally, a lot of like what we've seen and like experienced, you know. Tell us, like, how can people work with you? What does it look like to work with you?
Yeah. So to work with me right now, I have one-on-one food and hormone health coaching. My program is 6 months long, and we meet on a weekly basis. I think that meeting on a weekly basis is important because it allows us to track patterns in a timely manner while you remember. And the 6 month time frame is to give yourself time to make adjustments, to learn about yourself, to implement them, to kind of like what people love to say, fall off the wagon and see how you can come back. So there's so many things that happen in that period of time. And like I mentioned, my clients are really high achievers. They feel a little bit burnt out. They have a lot of stress going on. They're parents or caretakers of other family members. And they're also really savvy in health and wellness. But a lot of times they have a hard time staying consistent or incorporating all the information and things like that. So that's a lot of the things that we work on together. And then you have access to me via WhatsApp. You have the food and lifestyle tracking app that we go over together. And it's very organic in the way that we're learning. There's a lot of education in my program. We'll learn about blood sugar and all the hormones and all of that.
Learning a language.
Learning the language so that you're confident in your decision making. You know why you're making that choice. So that's very important to me. So yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah. One-on-one, 6 months.
And I think it's also like making sense of because there's so much information, but like coaches, like you're able to help them figure out what makes sense for them specifically versus all of the advice and all the things you can do. It's like to have somebody that's like not just there with you, but that can kind of create that plan with you specifically based on your history, where you are, what you want, your lifestyle and things like that. Cause I'm sure it's like someone who has like 2 kids and a full-time job is going to have different needs than somebody who's an entrepreneur and like doesn't have kids and has more free time and like all the things. So that's just so valuable.
Yeah,
like
that's exactly it. There's many different options. So sometimes people think there's only one way to do things. I'm like, no. We're going to have all of these options, all of these tools to choose from.
Yes. To me, I think I'm like, that's the most valuable part about mentorship and coaching is that person that sees you. There's also, I know your podcast, Wealthy Generation, all of your contact information. Anyone who's listening is going to be in the show notes for her Instagram podcast for them to listen to and follow you. But I've loved our conversation. Thank you so much for just sharing everything with us. I feel like you brought to light a lot of things that I know that probably every listener like experiences. And I hope that those that are listening really are looking at like what could be possible for them from a different lens and maybe blaming themselves a little bit less and having a little more self-compassion, but being like, you can feel good in your body. You can have, things can be different and we don't always have to just accept that this is just the way that I am. You know, there's always options. So, and get in touch with Naihomy.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful as always.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. I will catch you all on the next episode.